Hi, I'm Tanya, and this is the Midnight Creak. We're diving headfirst into a location that honestly sends shivers down my spine just thinking about it. Newsham Park Hospital. We're talking about one of the UK's largest, most notoriously haunted abandoned buildings. If you like our content, please subscribe.
It's a fascinating, if incredibly unsettling place. Its history alone is enough to give you chills. It actually started its life way back in 1874, not as a hospital, but as the Liverpool Seamen's Orphan Institution. Can you imagine thousands of orphans living there, under what was, by all accounts, incredibly strict discipline?
Oh gosh, just picturing that, the sheer scale of it. Thousands of children, probably feeling so alone and vulnerable. That's a lot of emotional energy to imprint on a building right from the start. And then it became a hospital, right?
That's right, Sarah. After its time as an orphanage, it transitioned into Newsham Park Hospital, and then later, crucially, it became a psychiatric facility. So you've got this layers of human experience, the innocent but disciplined orphans, and then later, patients with various physical and mental health conditions. It finally closed its doors in 1997, and it's been empty ever since, just decaying.
And that's where the paranormal claims really started to pile up, didn't they? I mean, an abandoned building of that size, with that kind of history, it's almost a perfect storm for ghost stories, whether you believe them or not. The decaying wards, those long, dark corridors, the basements. It's like something out of a horror movie.
Exactly, Tanya, and the claims are really specific, not just vague, it's spooky feelings. People who visit, paranormal investigators, they're reporting things like footsteps pacing above them when the upper floors are completely empty. How do you even begin to explain that?
Oh, that's classic, the disembodied footsteps. I think that's one of the most chilling sounds you can hear in a supposedly empty building. It's so distinctly human, but there's no human there. It makes you question everything. I've heard reports of distant knocking and unexplained bangs echoing through the stairwells, too. Like someone still trapped, trying to get out.
Yeah, and it's not just auditory. Investigators have also described doors moving on their own. Not just a slight creak from a draft, but distinct movements. And of course, the sudden, inexplicable cold spots in former patient rooms. Those are pretty common reports from Newsham.
Now, cold spots I've always found interesting. I mean, theoretically, an old building, drafts, broken windows, you could get pockets of cold air. But when it's just one specific spot in a room and it's drastically colder than the ambient temperature, that's harder to rationalise. The doors moving, though, that's tough to explain away. Unless the building is just falling apart, shifting on its foundations.
True, Tanya, but when you combine it with the sounds people are hearing, like whispering in the corridors, not just wind, but actual whispers. Some even claim to hear what sounds like metal beds scraping across floors, or objects being moved in areas that are completely sealed off. How would that even be physically possible?
The scraping beds, I heard about that. That's terrifying. It conjures up such vivid images of patients being moved, perhaps against their will, or struggling in the psychiatric wards. Imagine being there overnight and hearing that. I'd be out of there so fast.
And it seems to be particularly active in the basement and the old isolation wards. Those areas are consistently cited as the most intense. People who enter them often describe this really heavy atmosphere, sudden drops in temperature, even more dramatic than the cold spots elsewhere, and an intense, overwhelming feeling of being watched.
Okay, the feeling of being watched is something that, even as a skeptic, I can relate to. You get that primal sense when you're in a dark, unfamiliar place. Your mind plays tricks on you. But the consistent temperature drops and the heavy atmosphere, particularly in specific areas, does make you pause. Is it residual energy or just the mind creating an experience based on expectation?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it, Tanya? But then you have reports of visual phenomena, shadowy figures seen at the end of hallways only to disappear when approached. That's not just a feeling anymore. That's something you perceive with your eyes.
That's exactly it. The shadowy figures. I think those are the most compelling. You can dismiss a sound or a feeling, but when you see something, even if it's fleeting, your brain struggles to make sense of it. And when it vanishes, it just amplifies the terror. It's like you're glimpsing something from another dimension.
And let's not forget the audio recordings. During overnight investigations, teams have captured strange noises that defy explanation. Whispers, voices, even what sound like cries. It's one thing to hear it in person, but to capture it on a device, that's concrete evidence, at least for some.
Audio evidence is always tricky though. You get a lot of false positives with EVPs, electromagnetic voice phenomena, where people interpret static or ambient noise as voices. But if it's clear and distinct, that's a different story. I'd be interested to hear some of those recordings myself. They'd have to be pretty compelling to convince me.
Well, maybe we should all plan a trip, Tanya. Kidding, mostly. But what do you all think it is about this particular building? Is it purely the history, the sheer weight of all that suffering and isolation that makes it such a magnet for these kinds of experiences?
I absolutely think so. You have thousands of children living under strict discipline, possibly experiencing neglect or trauma. Then you have patients with mental health issues, many of whom were probably marginalized and misunderstood by society. The building absorbed all that pain, all that raw emotion, over decades. It's like it's a giant battery, storing all that energy.
I agree with Sarah. The very structure of the place amplifies it too. When you're walking through those decaying wards, with the peeling paint, the broken windows, the empty spaces where beds and lives once were, it just creates an incredibly eerie, oppressive atmosphere. It's almost designed to make you feel uneasy, even without any paranormal activity.
And the abandonment aspect can't be understated either. When a building sits empty for decades, it starts to degrade. The sounds it makes as it settles, the drafts, the way light filters through broken panes, all these things can play tricks on the mind and make you think you're hearing or seeing things that aren't really there. Our brains are hardwired to find patterns, even where there aren't any.
That's a fair point, Tanya, but what about the consistency of the reports? If one person hears footsteps, and another hears whispering in the same corridor, and someone else sees a shadow in that same spot, at some point the coincidences become harder to ignore, right?
Exactly. It's not just one isolated incident. Newsham Park has built this reputation over years, attracting countless paranormal teams and thrill seekers who all report similar phenomena. It's not just one person's imagination run wild. There's something undeniably powerful about that place.
And it's interesting how it became a psychiatric facility, too. You have to consider the potential for patients, especially those with severe mental health conditions, to have experienced distress or even trauma within those walls. That energy, that emotional residue, could certainly contribute to a haunted atmosphere.
I can see that. The sheer weight of human experience, both positive and negative, can leave an impression. It's almost like the building itself has a memory. And when you factor in the Victorian era mindset about mental health, it was often a place of isolation and fear for many patients, not just healing. That's a grim thought.
It truly is. So for anyone out there listening who's ever considered visiting a truly active haunted location, Newsham Park Hospital seems to be high on the list. It promises not just a creepy vibe, but a full-on sensory experience of the unknown. From the footsteps above to the whispers in the dark basements, it sounds like a place that truly clings to its past.
It definitely does, and I think that's what draws people in. It's the chance to connect with those echoes, to perhaps even bear witness to the lives that once filled those empty rooms. It's a reminder that history isn't always silent, sometimes it whispers back.
Yeah, it really is a place where you can feel the layers of history. And whether you believe in ghosts or not, the atmosphere alone is a powerful experience. It tells a story, a very long and often sad story, just by being there.
I think for me it's the combination of the tragic history, the decay, and those unsettling reports that makes it so compelling. Even if it's all psychological, the building itself is a masterpiece of atmospheric horror. It's the perfect canvas for our deepest fears. But I'd still be bringing my flashlight and a strong coffee, just in case.
A flashlight and a strong coffee sound like essential equipment for Newsham Park, Mark. What an incredibly intriguing and chilling discussion. It really makes you think about the energy buildings can hold. Thank you, Andrew, Sarah, and Mark, for shedding some light, or perhaps some shadow, on the mysteries of Newsham Park Hospital. To our listeners, if you've ever visited, let us know your experiences. We'd love to hear them. Until next time, stay curious and stay afraid.